Okay, so we've exported our file to the local computer as an STL file. So this is the directory where I saved that file, and this is the STL file I've got on my local machine. If I just hit preview, you can see we've got this very simple triangulated mesh. So I'm not going to go into exactly how we 3D print that right now. I'll go through that in a future tutorial. But I just thought we could have a look at the printed object. So this is the object that came off the 3D printer. And we can see that it actually matches pretty well. I did find that when I tried to fit the knob to the shaft, it was just a little bit small. This is a frequent thing that might happen with 3D prints, is there's a certain amount of tolerance that you have to add in, sometimes due to the slicing as well as the sort of physics of the printer and the specific settings of the printer. You may need just a little more or less space. So basically the issue was that there was just a little, it was just a little bit tight. And what I did is I went to my object and I took my calipers and basically measured inside here to the best that I could. So with the calipers, I can use these sides of the jaws to measure what's between them, and you kind of want to use this the thin part here to get the most accurate measurement. So we saw we had 6 millimeters on the shaft. You can use this other side to measure the size of a hole. So if I put this into our printed object, you can see it's a little small, right? So I ended up with something more like 5.5 millimeters. So lost about 1/4 of a millimeter on each side. And so what I can do to account for that into Fusion is I could go back in my timeline and adjust some of these things. So if I go back to this piece that we cut out here, knowing that I lost 0.5 millimeter, I could add a little bit here. Maybe I still keep it just a little bit small to try to keep it tight. So I change it from 6 to 6.4, and so you can see that it's expanding the hole. And then similarly with this piece here, I could move it over just a little bit more. Let's just say let's move it over, let's move over like 0.2 millimeters. And so now I've basically very quickly just increased the size of that hole there. Now I could say here, I could say hole enlarged. And if I save here, I could, for example, call this knob B2. And then I could print that again. So I did print that again, and on my particular printer, that took about 7 minutes. Actually, it was not too long. It took a little bit of time for the machine to heat up, but then it didn't take so long for it to actually print. And then it did actually fit pretty well. So if I squeeze that on there, you can see that I have something that fits pretty well, and it's nice and snug. So that is definitely a success. One other thing I wanted to show you before we go is some of these other things that we can do with objects inside Fusion. So in this particular one, I have added a little bit of text, and I wanted to show you how we could do that. Okay, so first of all, these square edges are okay, but it makes things a little bit nicer to the touch to smooth out those edges a little bit. So one common technique we can do is something called a chamfer. There's also a fillet, which is a slightly more rounded version. I do find, however, though, that somehow with the 3D printing, the chamfers seem to be a little more aesthetically pleasing with the layers. So I'm just going to select this chamfer here, and basically I can choose one of the surfaces like a face or an edge. I'm going to choose this top part. And then you can see here now as I'm dragging the arrow, what it's actually doing is it's cutting off the edge there. And so just a little bit of chamfer might be nice there. Let's say maybe 1.5 millimeters, maybe just 1. Split the difference. Yeah, and so you can see what it's doing is it's just kind of rounding out that edge. You could also maybe do that on the bottom face. So do another chamfer there. And I could select this edge that I want to chamfer and drag it in. Let's just do like a little bit here just to clean it up a little bit. And so that's going to give our button just like maybe a slightly more pleasing shape. And next, let's go ahead and add some text to the top of the button. So what we're going to do now is we're going to create a sketch. Basically, a sketch allows us to create a drawing that we can then use to do things like extrude or do other operations on. So let's create a sketch, and then I need to say, where do I want to put the sketch? In this case, I actually want to put the sketch right on the top of this button, since, or sorry, I should say knob, because I want to put some text on there. So I select the top of the knob, and now it has moved us into sketch mode. You can tell because some of these icons have changed. And here I am going to go into create and then choose text. Then basically I need to create a little frame for the text to live in, little space for the text to live in. So I'm just going to kind of roughly center it there. Now in here I could type my text, so might just do an M for sake of argument. And you can choose different fonts and everything. I don't know. Try to make it nice and bold. Here you can do your text alignment as you would expect. You can rotate it. In this case, it's not really going to matter since we plan to rotate the entire knob anyway. And I'll just go ahead and hit OK. We can change the height in here if we wanted to make it bigger or smaller. So when we go for the 3D printing, it is going to be a bit low resolution when we're printing. So just something to keep in mind, that very fine text probably not going to come out very well. Okay, so now I've got my M centered on there. I'm going to hit Finish Sketch. Now we can see over here in our document tree, we have this new sketch. So let me just rename this. I could just call this Text Sketch. Just to help us not get too lost later. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into Create and Emboss. This is going to allow us to basically take this sketch profile and use it to emboss or engrave into another body or face. So I've got the M sketch profile selected. Now I need to click in here to select the face, and I want to do the top of the knob. Here you can see I can choose the effect. I can emboss to bring it up or deboss to bring it down. I'm going to bring it up, the emboss, and then I can set the depth here. And for example, I could look at the side here and see how high up it's going to go. Let's just bring it up by, let's say, 1 millimeter. And yeah, there we go. So I've got my M there on top of our newly rounded, chamfered, sleeker version of the knob. So here I could call it knob M. And again, we could save this as a mesh and export it. Let's have a look at how that looks once we 3D print it. So you can see here we've got a little bit more of a rounded edge. I've got the M on there, and it fits on quite nicely. One tip with adding lettering and stuff like that is if you make something embossed like that, an easy way to make it more visible is to just go over it with a permanent marker. So if I just go over it, you can see that the M is coming out nicely. Might need to just clean that up with a little bit of alcohol to clean up the edge there. But you can see we can get nice letters in like that. We will also look at how we can actually print that in a different color of plastic, which is a bit more of an advanced technique, but we're going to get there. So yeah, so we've seen this, so we were able to kind of round the edges a little bit, feels a little nicer. We're able to emboss some text in there. For this rotary button, maybe it doesn't make quite as much sense, but for the push buttons, the keycaps, it makes a lot more sense. So I also wanted to point out, we're not limited to only recreating things that have existed before. We can also go and create new things. So we got our nice knob with some rounded edges. Next, I wanted to show you a different kind of idea. So I think what's important with our class is to also just think of it, now that we can make our own physical components, maybe there's different things that we could do. So this was just a quick idea I had to do as a test, and the idea here was to actually attach a little arm to the rotary encoder to use it as a different way of actioning it. So basically took the existing design we had made for the piece that fit on here after we'd adjusted the tolerance a little bit to make it fit nicely, and then extended out the knob by creating another box here and joining it to this piece, and then creating another little cylinder here at the end to create this little arm. And as you can see, if I put that on there, well, now I've got something different. So maybe there's some kind of different way we're going to be able to select different things. Maybe you need to manually crank this to get your music playing at the right speed. Maybe we could use something like this for assistive device for somebody who has a different abilities, who's maybe not able to have the really fine movement to turn the knob this way. Maybe they're able to action it this way. So it's kind of, the sky's kind of the limit once we get started, and as we start to build up this different little repertoire of different pieces of things that we can connect to our electronic components, we really are going to be able to merge the physical world with also the digital inputs, and then using that to control the music.